They made a homunculus. That is really my only explanation for what this research group did. As I'm sure you know, you can grow all sorts of human organs just from stem cells, like our friends the brain organoids, but you can also connect them to other stuff. We know that you can take the brain organoids and then just put them together, and they'll grow together and think together. They even have brainwaves. And not just delta brainwaves that are associated with an asleep brain or the brain of somebody in a coma. They do have stuff like alpha and beta brainwaves, stuff that would be associated with consciousness, although it's not really significant, right? Brain organoids look very much like a preterm baby. You can see this is what an adult EEG should look like, and that's what a preterm baby, so a baby who's born a little bit too soon, and that's what our organoids' brains look like. But ideally, they would never really mature into a fully functional brain because they lack the machinery for it, i.e. a body. But what if you give them a body? So a research group decided to just put other kinds of organoids together and create a little homunculus. They connected a brain organoid to an eye assembloid, and as you know, they can have eyes, but they decided to grow one separately. They connected it with a motor neuron spheroid and then a muscle bundle. So when they shined light on the eye, it then transferred that information into the brain, which then transferred it into the muscle body thing and moves the muscles. They've learned to use the muscles. They essentially treat it like a body. This is quite bizarre. Not really the first time that this was tried. It's definitely the first time it was tried with humans. You can build xenobots if you take stem cells from a frog and then coax it into becoming a body. It may not actually become a body, it becomes a xenobot. So a kind of muscle fiber thing. But you can give those muscle fiber things a frog brain and it'll kind of use the body and move around. Apparently the ones with brains are more intelligent than just the muscle fiber body things. Now this isn't purposeless. Having a little homunculus-like entity is very useful for medical research. The brains alone don't tell the entire story, and if you just have muscle organoids alone, also doesn't tell the entire story if you want to model things like diseases or medications. It's actually quite helpful. As for how our brain organoids are doing in game world, because yes, you can hook a brain organoid up to a video game. They've done it with butterflies, they've done it with Pong. Researchers have been trying to really demonstrate that the brain organoids are smarter than AI models, and that's what originally was found the first time someone hooked them up to Pong. That is also when they claimed they were sentient. I mean, they kind of are sentient. You can train them on dopamine. They don't like disordered signals. That's how the reinforcement learning is done. That's how they operate bodies in game world. They prefer order, dislike disorder, and can be reinforced with neurochemicals. And with that, they learn. They're still learning better than our best AI models. Now, 6 years later, they are still beating AI at Pong. And it kind of makes sense. That's what these guys are evolved for, right? They are tiny human brains, or little analogs to human brains, grown from our own stem cells. You're supposed to be learning how to interact with an environment. It makes sense that they would do better than AI because we're kind of trying to make something analogous to intelligence versus just harvesting intelligence. And of course, you can hook them up to AI. They've been used for learning things like speech. They can recognize human speech. They're not super great at putting out the kind of linear information that we like AI to do, but they're better at doing things like operating a body that AI just kind of sucks at. One of the issues that researchers have with these guys is communicating with them. This is where a lot of neuromorphic robotics comes in handy. When you have a sensation, it's immediately turned into a nerve impulse. For computers, it has a few steps in between. Graphene has been really useful for taking stimuli, immediately turning it into an electrical impulse, and that can communicate with the brain organoids, which is what these guys did here. They also brought back the need for organoid eyes, which I find fascinating. If you want to learn more about this stuff, let me know. I largely feel like people have gotten bored of it, but it's so weird.